Thanks, Ashley. Okay, cool. So limited budgets, limited staff, overworked staff, fragmented tools. So you might be working with a lot of different platforms that aren't properly integrated. They're not talking to each other. This can lead to fragmented data and reporting, just overall stress with, all of the different platforms that you have to manage. Um, and obviously, there's a lot of clutter, there's a lot of inbox fatigue. It's hard to cut through the noise. And then to add on top of all of that, this year there's obviously been a lot of unpredictability around government funding, grants. So being prepared is key. And then I wanted to show just a couple of graphics from our 2024 State of Nonprofit Marketing report that we ran earlier this year. So this is based on a survey that we ran to ask nonprofits what they did in 2024, what was working, what wasn't, what challenges they were facing. And then we published this early 2025. This is an annual report. So obviously we're doing this again. These numbers will change and we're going to be releasing a new report at the beginning of 2026. But we like to ask questions like this one to kind of see, what is getting in the way of making the right moves forward for your organization. Obviously, a lot of these things are pretty intuitive. I'm sure some of these things resonate or you identify with a couple of the reasons here. So again, limited budget, difficulty measuring the effectiveness of multi-channel efforts, and this comes down to the tools that you're using. Lack of expertise, right? So this is kind of what this webinar is about, feeling like you don't really even know where to get started. And so then you have sort of this paralysis of not even trying to get started. Um, and then, yeah, coordinating campaigns across platforms, limited access to the right tech, things like that. So, without a strong multi-channel approach, without placing digital ads wherever you need to place them in order to reach your audience members, you're going to be missing out not only on getting those conversions and driving donations, driving memberships, but you're also going to be missing out on becoming digitally fluent as an organization. And as we move forward into a higher tech, more AI integrated world, you want to make sure that you're keeping up. And I think another thing that's worth noting here is to pay attention to what for-profit organizations are doing and do more of that. So you might not identify with the work itself, but you know that all of your favorite brands know exactly when to reach you, where to reach you, and how to persuade you to give them your money, right? And that's essentially what you're trying to do with your donors, with your members. And you might think of it in a different way. It's not as capitalistic, it's not consumer marketing, but you need to be doing the same things that work in consumer marketing, not be afraid of the word marketing, not be afraid of talking about budget, right? Because you need it in order to continue getting on people's radars, getting them to convert, getting them to give you their money, right? That is the goal. And then just another quick graph here. So showing that individual donors were ranked as the top source of support for nonprofits. And this again was 2024. This probably has continued in this same direction and increased over the past year, just given that these two, which are the second and third main sources of funding, have been very precarious. And so getting in front of individual donors is super important these days. And this means that having the right tools to be serving people ads and really delivering that personalized journey, that targeted journey for each individual user, that's going to be key for driving donations. And again, if you are a member-based org, that's going to be key for driving memberships, member renewals, event registrations, all of that stuff. So how can digital ads help with these challenges? So digital ads specifically let you reach people beyond just your email list or your social followers. So you're probably doing email marketing. Obviously, everyone's doing email. You're probably doing some social media. You might be doing some advertising as well. But the right types of ads and having a variety of digital ad campaigns that all work with each other and work alongside in alignment with your email, with your social, this is going to help you reach beyond just what you're doing already. And then it helps you keep your message in front of your warm audiences so you can actually see who's visited my donate page and left without donating, who came to my membership page but didn't actually sign up to be a member. I want to serve those people ads when they're browsing the web. I want to serve them 21 ads over the next 5 weeks, and I want to stay in front of them, bring them back to my site until they convert. And again, you can be doing this alongside email, alongside social. You don't need to stop any of the other efforts, but you want to make sure that ads are a part of what you're doing. And again, having the right ad platform and having everything in one place allows you to see what's working, what's not, where you should cut some budget, add a little bit more. So just having that really clear understanding of the data, of how your ads are performing, what copy is working and what's not, what language is compelling, what's driving clicks and conversions. Maybe you want to A/B test some copy. Ads are a really great sort of low lift way to do that. And then I just wanted to, just so we're all on the same page about the type of ads that I'm talking about here. So there's lots of different types of digital ads. This includes social ads, search ads, things like that. But because we're limited here in time today, I'm going to be focusing on display ads. So we've all seen these. So I literally just went on a website last night and pulled this screenshot. I wanted to kind of see who's targeting me, right? And take the screenshot to kind of just show you guys, okay, this is what display ads mean. This is what we're talking about when we say display ads. And so these are just a couple of the ones that I saw last night when I was browsing this interior design website, right? And so one of them, this top one here, the Lego one, is clearly just some broad targeting by Lego, right? This is a company that has millions of dollars to spend on advertising. So they're serving me some ads, probably because of my age, in case I have kids, nieces, nephews that I'm looking to buy gifts for, right? And then you see over here, so I got an ad as well from Bird Eye, which is a social media management platform. And this actually feels a lot more targeted, right? Since I work in marketing, I work in tech, there is a chance that I could be shopping around for a platform like this. So, this is probably a lot more targeted based on my search history, my demographic information. This is definitely demographic based. And this is probably more of a combination of, search history, web browsing, things like that. Um, so just to give you kind of a sense of the types of display ads you see, how targeted, different companies can get with this, and we'll get into sort of what that process looks like for vying for these ad spots and what you need to put into your ads to make sure that you are showing up in these spots. So just again, a couple of examples of nonprofits doing this, right? So this is Grace Marketplace. This is an amazing organization in Gainesville, Florida, which is where Feathr is located. That's where I am right now. So this is just an example of a display ad in an app, right? This is just an app that somebody downloaded on their phone, a mobile app that they're using to play a game. And so they might see an ad like this, click on it, go to the website. Another example. So this is from the United States Canadian Academy of Pathology. So this is an association that we work with. I think this is just also a really pretty ad. And so the prettier you can make your ads, the better. And we'll get into some ad design best practices later, but I love that image. And so, yeah, this is another example of like an ad that you might see. So if you're an association, you want to be showing ads like this, reminding people of upcoming events, reminding them that their renewal is coming up, or their membership renewal is coming up soon. So there's a lot you can do with the messaging, and obviously serving different ads to different people allows you to really talk to them directly about where they're at in their journey with you. So you don't want to be serving the same ads to everybody, right? And you can get segmented with email marketing for sure, but ads just feel like a much more individualized journey. And so I think it's a really great way to really serve people that hyper targeted, hyper specific messaging about where they were just on your site, or, an email that they opened but then didn't follow through, right? Ads just give you that way of continuing to stay around them, top of mind, until they convert, hopefully. And then, like I said, ads don't have to replace email or social. They are meant to amplify those channels. And so just a quick example here. This is Christian Relief Fund. This is an amazing organization that used Feathr to drive more than $107,000 in end of year donations last year. So they had a huge success. It was the most successful end of year ever. And they ran ads like this one. So I just want to kind of walk through a sample of what this could look like, combining social, email, and display ads, right? So again, they don't have to step on each other's toes. They're meant to sort of complement each other. So this is maybe an ad that somebody would see as they're browsing on Facebook, right? Scrolling on Facebook. So you see, okay, Christian Relief Fund, they're serving me this ad. Because this might be a more general, like let's assume that I'm a new person who's never heard of Christian Relief Fund. It's sort of a general ad giving me a little bit of a sense of what they do with imagery, with the text here. And the button says to learn more. So they're not going to ask me to donate right off the bat, right? I don't know who they are. They want to kind of warm me up first before they ask me to pull out my wallet. So learn more, I might click through, learn a little bit more, click around on their website, but then leave without making a donation, right? So this is their donate page. Maybe I check this out. Maybe I click on sponsor a child, look at some other ways to give, but then ultimately I leave without doing anything. So then they might send me an email, right, and show up in my inbox asking me to donate, reminding me that I had visited the site, checked it out, right, and just reminding me of the reason to donate, maybe sharing some impact stories, some stats about how far my money could go, right, to help the cause. And then I might also see an ad like this as I'm browsing a recipe website, right? So if I'm looking for a recipe for a quiche, then I might be scrolling on this page and then see another ad from CRF. And so at this point, probably I'm familiar with the logo, the imagery, the sort of general ask, right? And so this might be a time, and again, it takes a lot of impressions, and we'll talk about this later as well. You have to show up many times for people. You want to serve a good number of ads because people might miss them. People have ad blindness. We're seeing banner blindness, right? We're seeing a lot of things all the time. So the idea is to continue showing up in these sort of subtle ways to help, again, complement the other ways that you're showing up. And then eventually, presumably, I will say, okay, you know what? I actually am interested in engaging again, visiting the site. So I might click give water. It should take me directly to that page. So like you saw here, this is another important thing, making sure that there's continuity between your ads and your emails and then where you're directing people to, right? So if I then see, even if I checked out the donate page and the sponsor child page, if I end up seeing this give water ad, we would want that to link to this page, right? So I can't click through, this is just a screenshot, but this provide clean water page, that's what you'd want to link to from this ad because that's what the CTA says. And another example, if you're asking for a specific donation amount, so say you're running an end of year appeal and you're saying just $5 can help feed a child for a week. You'd want to link to a donate page, right? You want the ad when they click through to link to a donate page that then has, if you have a default amount set, make sure that default is set to $5, not 25, right? Because that can be a little bit jarring if I clicked through because I thought, okay, $5 is reasonable for me. And then the default amount is set to something else. That might be enough to be like, actually, I don't have that much money. And so kind of removing any barriers to entry for people, just keeping the whole user journey really simple, really fluid, so that, it feels easy for people to give. And then just a quick quote from Caleb, who is the director of marketing at Christian Relief Fund. So again, they had huge success last year with their end of year campaigns. And this is an organization that just 4 years ago was basically just doing some print media and some social media. They weren't really doing a lot of modern marketing tactics. And so now with all of the amazing results that he's gotten and kind of started to gather a lot of data in Feathr that lets him better segment his audience and better, target and get a little bit more sophisticated in what he's doing with ads. So he said, unlike our more traditional campaigns in Feathr, we were able to follow the sponsor all the way to the donation, knowing exactly how long they stayed on the page with all the data that came with it. So we're going to be talking about retargeting in a few minutes, but that's basically the ability to see what someone's done on your website and then serve them ads based on that, bring them back, see what they've done. And so each ad or each outreach point gets a little bit more specific and more personalized because they've continued to engage and develop that relationship with your organization. So you want to be following that relationship, and your ads, your emails, your social media posts, all of that should reflect where they are at, right? So traditional ad buying, let's take a look at, what this actually looks like. So you've probably boosted a post, placed an ad somewhere before, with, maybe a local TV channel, a local magazine, right? A publication. And that's great. And you shouldn't stop doing that if it's working for you. But when you do it manually, each platform is kind of its own little island, right? So you can kind of see like this is what it really looks like to do that manual ad buying, manual sort of traditional advertising. Um, and then, it's just a lot more isolated. There's a lot more to manage. And you're sending artwork to local publications, like I said, buying ad space on a website directly or on somebody's newsletter, managing all of the creative, all of the individual budgets for that. Reporting is separate, and it just kind of eats up time and overall just limits your reach. Um, and so Programmatic kind of helps solve that problem, right? And so this just means that the buying process is automated. And this is how most digital advertising happens at this point. 85 to 90% of digital ads that are served on the web are happening through programmatic ad delivery. And so it's this kind of behind the scenes system that powers the majority of the ads that we're all seeing online. You don't have to negotiate, you don't have to manually upload ads one at a time. The software automatically does it for you. It automatically buys and places your ads across thousands of websites, putting them in front of your sort of warmest audiences or your most relevant audiences. And this is all happening in real time in milliseconds. So you can think of, every ad space, every little ad slot that is available for bidding. That's like a little mini digital billboard. And so when someone, maybe one of your donors or one of your members visits a cooking website or an interior design website or Facebook or whatever, you platforms like Feathr, right, can help you instantly bid to show your ad in one of those slots if the person matches your audience. And so it's just a much quicker, much easier automated way to be showing up in front of people that are most relevant for your organization. And just to get a little bit into the nitty-gritty, this all happens in what's called an ad exchange. So this is basically publishers offering ad space on their websites and then ad platforms like Feathr or others bidding for those spots on your behalf. And so your job really is to just know your audience, be specific in your targeting criteria, create good ads, right, that look nice, meet industry standards, are the right sizes for the placements, and then understand how to budget. And we'll talk a little bit about budgeting later. So hopefully that kind of makes sense and helps explain what programmatic means. So again, it's the system behind the scenes that's helping deliver those ads, serve those ads to people in real time, right? So it's all happening really quickly. The page loads, and in that time that it takes a page to load, these little auctions are happening and it's all automatic. So let's talk about some key targeting strategies. So ways that you can use programmatic display advertising to reach different types of audiences in different places for different reasons. So relevance is everything, and this is going to be, a thing that actually really impacts the bidding process. So how relevant your ad is to an audience member on a website is going to determine whether you even are able to bid for that spot or not. And then there's obviously going to be some competition. There's, each user, any individual user, you, I, can trigger hundreds or thousands of these little auctions a day. We're viewing tons and tons and tons of ads a day. And so even though it's a competitive space, it's actually your online journey is quite a personalized journey. And there's so many ad spaces that it's virtually limitless sort of real estate, right? And so that's again why it's a really great display ads, and programmatic advertising is a really great way to show up when those sort of manual ad buying processes just are limited in terms of ad space, right? Like if you're partnering with a website or a publication, they only have so much space to include ads from other organizations. And so you might not get that much time on their website. If they put a banner for you at the top of their homepage, it might not be there for very long, right? Because they have to switch those out. And so this allows you to show up for the people that you're actually trying to reach, not just everybody who visits some publication. And you can show up multiple times for them over time. And again, it's based on what they're doing with you. So it is a personalized journey. So yeah, relevance comes down to knowing your audience. Who are you talking to? Why do they care? This is something that hopefully you have a sense of already, but actually running ads is a really great way to kind of get a sense of what's resonating, what's not, who you're reaching, who you are reaching and isn't converting, who maybe you thought was a good fit and actually isn't, right? So it helps you kind of narrow down over time through looking at the data. Who am I actually going to be most likely to convert? Who's interested in this cause? How can I get in front of more of those people? And so crafting ads that feel personalized to whatever their journey looks like, and then getting specific in your targeting criteria, but your ad platform should handle the rest. And then David Edwards, who's the director of communications at Arkansas Hospice Foundation, another wonderful organization that works with Feathr, he said, with our digital ads, we continue to run more test concepts in smaller markets, optimize, and then roll them out in a larger service area. And our data shows what a difference small personalizations can make. So this is a great example of using ads to test who is our audience, how are we reaching them, who is actually responding in the way that we want them to? How can we get in front of those people more often and more effectively? And so I think this is just a great way to sum up how ads can be helpful for figuring out your audience. And then once you out your audience better, your ads will become better. So it really is this kind of mutually reinforcing positive forward momentum. And what I want to differentiate here is that you can use display ads, right? Programmatic display ads, which is what we're talking about, to drive awareness, so getting in front of new people. And then you can also use them to retarget people that already know of you. So we'll talk about retargeting in a minute. So those are your warmer audiences who already know about you, but you can reach entirely new groups of people who've never heard of you, who might be a good fit for whatever you're asking, whatever you're offering. And these are basically awareness campaigns. And so there's lots of different ways to do this. These are just some of the popular ones. So geofencing lets you target people in a specific physical location, like a park, hospital, an event venue, a sports event, a university, campus, things like that. Affinity audiences, so this lets you leverage third-party data to get in front of people based on demographic information, what they've searched for, what they've bought in the past. So lots of data there to kind of inform who you can sort of like hyper target uh, based on affinity groups. And so you can just select as many as you want to kind of really get it as narrow as possible. Because again, the more narrow and specific your targeting criteria, the more likely you're going to be able to bid successfully for those ad spots and serve ads to people. And so even with these sort of broader audiences where you're reaching tons of new people, you want to be specific, right? And this again comes back to knowing your audience. So knowing the sort of characteristics of people who tend to engage with your organization or tend to become members, right? And for a lot of organizations, this might be really straightforward. If you are a medical association and your member base is all, pediatricians, right? That's going to immediately narrow down who you're reaching in these affinity audiences. But it can be a little bit more complex if you are a charitable organization. So maybe okay, I want to reach local people for sure, but otherwise, I don't know, like maybe anybody could be willing to give to my organization. So kind of, again, understanding that the more specific you are, the better. And so you don't want to just target everybody across the country or across the world with ads, right? You want to kind of think, okay, like what is the income bracket of my typical donor? What does my typical donor look like? Maybe they're most often women, maybe they tend to be mothers, things like that. So things like that can be really helpful for running affinity targeting campaigns. And then search keyword targeting is another audience expansion or awareness campaign. And this is great for introducing your mission to new people who have searched for something relevant. So this is different than paid search like Google Ads, where you're showing up with those text-based ads in the search page, right, at the top. So this is actually after they've searched, they're, on some other websites, then they might see a display ad right in the corner or on the top, one of those banner ads for your organization. So because they searched for something relevant in the past and you're bidding for those keywords, you might search up on the Google page, you might show up on the Google page if you're running Google Ads, but then you also might show up later as they're browsing other sites. So that's a great way to um, make sure that you're kind of hitting people from every angle. Um, So Roxana, the search keywords, it's up to you. So if you have ever run Google ad campaigns, you might have a process for deciding like what, terms do we deem relevant. So if you are, some examples might be animal shelter. If you're an animal shelter, right? If somebody is searching animal shelter near me, you know that you want to be bidding for those keywords. Animal shelter, adopt a pet, adopt a cat, things like that. So that's a basic example, but it's going to be words that feel relevant to your mission or organization. And so you want to make sure that, you're iterating on that list. And if some keywords aren't really performing well, you can replace them with others. But yeah, and then a lot of the time there's overlap between the keywords that you want to be working with in Google Ads. And then a lot of those keywords might be useful for a search keyword campaign as well. Does Google have display ad targeting by income in Canada? I'm not sure, Lindsay. I will try to get an. I'm going to pull the questions after the webinar. I'll pull the chat and I'll try to get you an answer to that. Okay. Um, and then yeah, so Jessica, affinity audiences are really similar to lookalike audiences. So in Feathr, we offer both actually. And so typically what happens with a lookalike audience, both are leveraging third-party data. With a lookalike audience, you're basically selecting from an existing group or segment in your database. So this might be, people who donated in the past year or, current members, something like that. And then a lookalike campaign will help pull from third-party data to bring in new people who match those criteria or kind of look like that existing audience segment. And then affinity is pulling third-party data again, but it's more based on attributes or characteristics. So it's less like, okay, here's this actual audience that I have, give me more people that look like it. And it's kind of, I feel like my audience probably lives in these areas. They might be in this income bracket. You kind of are searching and narrowing down and like selecting groups. And then based on that combination, you kind of develop a persona or a profile. And then the affinity campaign can pull that data to create a new audience segment for you that you can target and hopefully pull into your pull into the mix and continue staying in front of. Um, okay, yeah, Nick, great addition there. So Google will actually help you with recommending keywords, which is great. And then Feathr does have, so you can actually run your Google ad grants. If you have a Google ad grant, if you're a charitable organization, you can manage that in Feathr, and Feathr will help also. We have an AI feature that helps generate suggested keywords there as well. Okay, cool. Yeah, so just wanted to kind of show a few examples of these awareness campaigns. So that's one thing that you can do with programmatic display. And then the other thing, and this is sort of our bread and butter here at Feathr, and this is one of the most high impact marketing campaigns that you can run. And this is retargeting, right, with digital ads. And so this helps you stay top of mind with your warmest audiences. So these are people on your email list, people who've been to your events, people who've donated in the past, people who've just visited your donate page but have left without making a gift, right? And so you can re-engage people who have interacted with you. It's cost effective, which we'll see in a minute, and it's high converting. And then, if you want to target email lists with ads, you can do that. You can pull data from your CRM and target people based on, again, past donations, membership, renewal dates, custom data that you have in your CRM, and you're serving ads to people on your email list. So you're not sending them emails, you're serving them ads because you have their email and they're sort of in your orbit. And then you can also retarget all of these same people on social media platforms. And so, if they visited your donate page and you want to catch them while they're scrolling on Facebook, to remind them of, your cause and why they should come back to your website, that's totally possible as well. All right, let's get a little bit into best practices. Um, uh, yeah, I'll get to that. Well, actually, you know what? Let me cover that now. Um, so Lindsay asked, does a programmatic ad platform type know how to retarget people who visited a page of your website? So the answer is yes. If you have an ad platform that tracks your web traffic, so for example, Feathr, when you sign on with Feathr, you install what we call a super pixel. So this is basically just a line of code. It's a tracking pixel that you install on any pages on your website or web properties that you want to track, right? And so this might be your homepage, your donate page. You can really include it on as many pages as you want, but you definitely want to do it on those high income pages or sorry, high intent pages. And so if somebody comes to your donate page and then leaves, that tracking pixel allows you to capture that information and then serve them ads as they browse the web. So it's completely anonymous information. None of it is de-anonymized until they choose to give you their name, their email address, things like that. So you don't have personal information on them, but you are able to show them ads as they browse other websites. And so this just comes down to having the right tracking pixel on the right pages of your site that you want to actually be monitoring and then serving out to people who visited them. All right, so some ad best practices. I want to plug this tool. I'm afraid to like get out of here again. Okay, I'm gonna do it. Bear with me because I do want to share this in the chat. And it looks like you guys are seeing it. Canva is weird. Okay, so I'm going to drop this in the chat. We released this on Monday of this week, so it's a new piece. But just to quickly scroll through, so this is, we're trying to make running ads, designing ads as easy as possible for nonprofits. And so we developed this resource to give you a starting point to kind of hit the ground running. We created a lot of ad templates in these different sectors. And as you can see, you can kind of scroll around. So human services and what it looks like, hopefully it'll let me show you. If I click on one of these, it then, it's not showing. But it will take you to a template in Canva, which you can then edit directly. And we've resized the ads for you. So we've provided the three main ad sizes for display ads. And so this should make it easier to get started with running ad campaigns. So we tried to kind of click the edit template button under the image. So were you seeing when I clicked? Are you seeing the ad in Canva? Okay. Okay, cool. It's not showing me that on my view. And so then if you click that, obviously you can see that it takes you into Canva, and then we have these three sizes here. And so the only thing that you absolutely have to do is replace your logo, right? Replace this placeholder with your logo. Otherwise, you can use these as is. You might want to switch up, some of the copy, some of the colors, but we try to design these in a way that would be as universally helpful and applicable as possible. But Canva makes it super easy um, to design and customize templates. So yeah, just to show a few more of the designs here. These animal rescue ones are very cute. And then we've got food banks. We've got health orgs here. And again, these are meant to be a starting point, so you can customize them to fit sort of more your look and feel if you want, but I think that this can often be a barrier to getting started is just like, what should my ads look like? And then sometimes you'll design a really pretty ad and then you have to resize it from a square into like a long rectangle, and then it's a whole other design process. And so we tried to make that simple by doing the resizing for you, at least for those more standard sizes. And we've got museums here. I think these are maybe my favorite. Orchestras as well. And then theaters. And I think I covered the others. But yeah, and then again, tried to cover kind of a variety of phases of that funnel, right? So these kind of awareness ads, top of funnel ads, a little bit of information, join us is the call to action. And then down here, you might have some cart abandonment campaigns that you're running. So again, those people who visit your website, visit your donate page, but leave without making a contribution, you can serve them ads that look like this with a little bit more of an urgent, direct appeal in the CTA. So wanted to just show that. And then again, the link is in the chat, and we sent this out on Monday. So a lot of you might have received this in your, I don't see the link where to find this in my Feathr account. So this is actually a separate like resource that we've created. It's on our website. It's just a marketing resource that we have shared with Feathr, people who aren't using Feathr and people who are. We want to make it accessible to people who aren't necessarily using the Feathr platform, but want to get started with ads. So I will send this out in my follow-up email as well, just for anyone who wants it and hasn't seen it anywhere before. And then we'll be sending it out. We'll be promoting it in different places over the coming weeks. So hopefully you'll see it somewhere, because again, we like to practice what we preach and do email marketing and also serve ads to all of you with our own content. So you should be seeing more promo for this piece coming up. But again, I will send it in the deck later. Okay, back to presentation mode. Okay. So ad sizes are a huge thing. Like I said, we did some of the standard resizing for you, but these are some of the sizes that you'll want to be creating for standard display advertising. included some of the standard sizes for geofencing campaigns. And then for Meta, these are the two main sizes that you'll need. There's lots of other platforms where you might be doing some advertising, LinkedIn, Pinterest. I didn't include all of those here. That's easy information to find. And a lot of those will probably have overlap with some of these more standard universal sizes, but this can be just a helpful starting point, making sure that you're aware that you can't just create a square ad and send it out there. You want to make sure that you're creating the same ad content in different sizes so that you are more likely to be able to vie for those spots, right? Because different pages will have different shaped ad slots, different size ad slots, and if you only have a square ad, you're only going to be able to show up in the square spaces and you might end up missing out on opportunities. And things just don't render properly if they're not the right sizes, and you will actually just get rejected by the supply side, by the publication, or by the ad exchange. Okay. And then just some quick tips for designing ads that actually convert. So creating visual hierarchy is key. You want to make sure you have a clean, nice looking image, headline, some copy underneath, and a clear CTA. You want to cut to the chase with concise and impactful copy. And so these are just two examples here of ads that are saying similar things, but as you can see, this one just has a much clearer header. The logo is a little bit bigger, the CTA is a little bit bigger, and overall it's just a lot cleaner. My eyes know exactly where to go, and I kind of am reading down in an intuitive way. This one, I see tons of ads that look like this, and better to be doing something than nothing, but this is going to be the kind of thing that people might glaze over, or it might show up way too small. It might even be too small right now for you guys to read. And so just making sure that you're including only sort of the most important copy that you want people to read, and then creating different sort of differentiating the different sections of your ad using font size, different fonts, color, things like that. And then keep it legible. So use clear fonts, don't go too small, give elements room to breathe. So white space is what it's called, but it doesn't necessarily have to be white. Obviously, this is considered white space here, and it's just clear space that isn't cluttered with text or with imagery. So it just kind of gives this middle image room to breathe and the text as well. And again, this font is very difficult to read. This one isn't. The sizes are too similar here. You really just can't read this. And this, it's like, okay, again, my eyes know exactly where to go. And it's an intuitive ad to kind of consume and then know what to do next if I want to click the button and make moves. And then, yeah, make sure your logo is visible, but you don't want your logo to be the biggest thing on the ad by any means. And then make your CTA pop. So this is a pretty simple side by side, but this CTA, I think we can all agree, the orange one just stands out more and would be more likely to, I think, catch someone's eye. So using strong contrast, and then using urgency in your CTA and your button text, if that makes sense. So join us is not urgent. That is probably a more top of funnel awareness campaign, kind of getting people in the loop on what you do, trying to get them to come through and learn more. But then as they've engaged with you, or maybe you're coming up on end of year and you're targeting people who've been to your site and you really want them to donate before year end, you might add more urgent language like last chance. If you have a gift matching campaign, you should definitely add that into your ad in some way. So include that in the copy, maybe even the CTA, match my gift 3x now, things like that. So lots of ways to do that, but gift matching campaigns are extremely impactful, and talk about them whenever and wherever you can, including in your ads. Okay, before I get into this last section here, I do want to run a quick poll just because I know people tend to start dropping off in the last few minutes because you probably have meetings and other things happening. So before I talk about budgeting, I want to just launch another quick one to see if anyone is interested in learning more about Feathr. So everything we've talked about today is possible through Feathr. Like I said, there's lots of platforms that help you do this, but Feathr is designed specifically for nonprofits, for associations. With those built-in best practices, we have lots of people at the organization who understand what you're working on and want to help make it as easy as possible. So go ahead and drop this in. We've got lots of existing Feathr users on here today. So shout out to all of our customers. Thanks for joining. I love when you guys join because it makes me feel like this content is helpful for not just people who are new, but people who are already doing digital advertising and still feel like they can learn more. So cool. Yes, Kay, the recording will be sent out. So I'll be sending out the recording and the slide deck tomorrow. So check your email inbox tomorrow for that. Cool. I'll let those keep rolling in. And then we can talk about budgeting and how to measure success. So when it comes to measuring digital ads, you want to make sure that you're thinking about what the goal of the campaign is. So there isn't really a single correct metric to be looking at. With awareness campaigns, with those, like we said, geofencing campaigns, affinity, search targeting, when you're trying to get in front of an entirely new group of people and teach them about your cause or your mission, this is going to be more about visibility, engagement. How many ad impressions am I serving to people? How many of those people are clicking on the ads eventually and coming to my site to learn more? And then retargeting, which is sort of the other piece where you're using display ads, but you're using them to stay in front of people who already know about you, stay in front of your warm audiences. Those campaigns are more going to be defined by how many conversions are you getting, cost efficiency, right? So we'll look a little bit at the differences between a sort of general retargeting campaign budget and a more down the funnel campaign budget for retargeting. But you want to be making sure, so retargeting is a high performant ad strategy, and it is one that you do want to make sure that you're investing budget in the right ways because this will result in conversions. And so this is and then real quick, so I wanted to cover this because this is probably something that you've heard of and maybe you understand it, maybe you don't, but there's this term CPM, which is cost, it stands for cost per mil or cost per 1,000 ad views. And so because each view or impression costs like less than a penny, it's a fraction of a penny, it just makes sense to bundle and sell ad impressions in this way. So you're buying them by the thousand, right? Or your ad platform is basically um, buying them by the thousand. And so this is the formula here for actually calculating how many ad impressions you would get based on your budget. So for example, if you are just starting out, and you want to run a retargeting campaign, but you don't want to put too much into it because you're kind of just getting started. Let's say you set aside $250 as a budget for a campaign. So if you take $250 budget, and let's say that your average CPM is about $5. So this is something your CPM is going to vary, but it's going to average out to be a certain amount depending on the type of audience you're targeting. So the broader, more expensive, the more specific, cheaper. So let's say this is, retargeting campaign that you're running to a more targeted audience. Your CPM might be closer to $5 than $12, right? And so budget is 250, average CPM might be around $5. Divide those, multiply by 1,000, because this is the mil part of cost per mil. And then you end up with 50,000 ad impressions. So for just a $250 budget, you can serve 50,000 ads to people who've been to your site and left, or been to your site multiple times, or maybe people that, have engaged with you before, have been to an event. So it depends on what your audience looks like, but just to kind of show you that $250 can turn into 50,000 ads shown to people. So, and again, we're going for visibility with ad impressions. And so, you know, um, you're not paying when someone clicks, you are paying a tiny, tiny amount to show up, right? And so if they click or not, that doesn't impact your cost. You're just paying for that to bid for that spot and when you show up. If you bid for it and you don't show up, you don't pay. If you serve the ad, when the ad actually gets served, that's when you pay. Again, it's tiny, tiny amount per impression. And then you do want people to click on the ads, but you don't pay per click. It's not like other channels. And again, getting people to click through on the ads is where ad design and relevancy are key. And then I included this chart. You can go through this, on your own after once I send out the deck, but I thought this might be a helpful way to kind of break down and explain, what typical CPMs look like. So for a broader national audience, you're going to be competing against tons of bidders, big brands, for-profit brands, sort of more general targeting. So, like I said earlier with affinity targeting, you don't want to just go after all all women over 35 in the US. Like that probably doesn't make sense, right? That's an extremely broad audience. You're going to be competing against those brands like Lego that have millions of dollars to spend, who also might be going for women between 35 and 45 in the US. And they're going to be the ones, placing. And so it's not to say that you can't, show up when you bid for these sort of broader audiences or when you target broader audiences. But the more specific you can be, the better, and your CPM will go down accordingly because the CPM is obviously going to be higher if more people are bidding for it, right? And so you want to think about sort of trying to get as specific as possible, even when you're targeting a net new audience in an awareness campaign. And then for local regional audiences, this is a little bit lower competition just because you're just working with fewer people, but it can still be competitive because it's a little bit generic. And then with CRM or website retargeting, so CRM retargeting is basically what I said earlier. So taking the data that you have in your CRM, so email lists, people who've attended events before, past donors, and you're serving them ads based on the information that you have about them. And so this is highly targeted. These are people who you are literally trying to reach these exact individual people. You're going to be creating ad creative that is highly relevant to them. CPM is lower because it's such a specific group. There's going to be fewer people bidding. And so the combination of a lower CPM, which is great for your budget, and your high relevancy is going to place you as sort of a top contender in vying for those spots. And so competition here is low. Typical CPM range can be around $2 to $6. And just a few examples of, so these are some reports from campaigns that Christian Relief Fund ran as part of its end of year campaign last year. So as you can see here, the CPM is $12.32. And this was a historical geofencing campaign. And so it's a small audience here because they targeted a local church. But the relevancy isn't really guaranteed because, this is a church, so they might be more interested in a charitable organization or maybe donating to this cause. But really, it's just a big group of people who went to this church. And so lots of other brands are also trying to reach them. It's going to be more competitive than sort of a small group of people who visited your website or a small group of recent donors, right? And then as you can see here, so they reached, a little over 1,500 people. And this might sound small for an awareness campaign, but they were just targeting one church here. So they did target several other physical locations and then lots of other, they did a lot of awareness targeting. So this is just one campaign. And each person viewed one of their ads 3 times. And then you can see here that 35 people, unique people, clicked through on one of the ads to learn more. So the CTR, so the click-through rate on the ads here was 1.02%, and generally 0.3 to 1% is a pretty good CTR for awareness campaigns. And then you can see a huge drop off here. So this CPM, right, you're paying $12 to bid, right? Per 1,000 ad impressions delivered to this broader audience that's probably going to be they're probably getting targeted by lots of other brands that have higher budgets, and it's just broad and less specific. And then you come here to a retargeting campaign. So this is, I want to go directly for people who just visited my website in the last 30 days or the last 15 days. You can set that however you want. The CPM immediately goes much lower, right? Because this is just a less competitive group of people. You are going to be creating highly relevant content for them, serving them ads that are going to be speaking directly to their online behavior, their online activity. And so you're going to be more likely to be able to serve ads in those spots. And you're a more competitive player when you are targeting very specific audiences. So CPM is lower here. And then you can see, you have with a lower CPM, you're going to have more budget to actually serve more impressions. And then with retargeting, you're going to be serving more impressions overall, probably than with an awareness campaign, because awareness is really just about getting on their radar the first time. Hey, come through to our website. It might take many impressions or it might take a few, But once they do come through, then you're kind of in the real journey with them of trying to get them to stay with you, engage with you until they make that conversion. Um, and so each person was served an ad 21 times. And so, yeah, much higher views per user than this campaign. And then finally, high intent donor retargeting. So this is your warmest possible audience, but you want to spend a little bit more to make sure that you're sealing the deal. So this is a very, very high performing type of campaign. This is basically cart abandonment, right? People who showed a high intent for becoming a donor, becoming a member, but then they didn't. They abandoned that page. So you know that they're close, but they're for whatever reason not completing the activity. And so you want to be showing up for them and really, really investing in showing up in the right places. And so sometimes this bucket of people is sort of quite a bit smaller than your other campaigns. Again, because it's like if you're retargeting everyone who's been to your website in the last 30 days versus everybody who's been to your donate page in the last 5 days, right? So that's a very warm audience. It's very recent, it's timely. And so again, you're going to have fewer impressions so opposite of the previous campaign, you're going to have fewer impressions to serve because CPM is higher. So it's 10 views per user. And all of this is variable, depending on your budget and what kind of CPM you agree to. You can set a maximum CPM if you want, but also your ad platform should kind of help, bid for you in a way that'll average it out to be kind of industry standard. And then you can see here that they got 79 clicks through this ad campaign back to their website, back to the sponsor a child page. And many of those people did convert because, like I said, their end of year campaign last year was extremely successful. They raised more than $107,000 in donations and child sponsorship revenue. So amazing results there. And hopefully, yeah, this helped you kind of get a sense of what those numbers could look like from campaign to campaign, depending on your goals, depending on your budget. And yeah, all right. Well, that wraps things up. Thanks to everyone who stayed the extra 3 minutes with me. But thank you for joining. And again, I will be sending this out soon, tomorrow, and you will get in your inbox. Cool. Thank you guys so much.